you're one of the lucky 10 million boys or girls who got a Nintendo Switch at some point this past year, then chances are your PPs and or VVs are rock hard right now with all the great games that came out within the past 2 months. In order to play some of these games though, you're gonna need to spend some extra money on a micro SD card since the Nintendo Switch only has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which makes some people more angry than my mom when she checked my browser history. But if you ask me, 32 gigabytes is plenty of space if you take 4 things into consideration. My name's Cameron and I'll tell you what those 4 things are. But first, I'm required by law to suggest you press the subscribe button before you even watch the video because a lot of big channels do that for some reason. But anyway, enjoy the show! Now, I know a lot of you are thinking it's bullshit to even suggest that 32 gigabytes is enough internal storage for a console released in 2017. After all, some even think that 500 gigabytes wasn't enough when the PS4 and Xbox One were initially released back in 1993. And yeah, it would be better if the Switch had more space, but the true root of the problem doesn't have to do with the storage, it's what's become of the video game industry. Remember how much internal storage consoles needed up until the Xbox came along? That's right, 0 kilobytes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a dick to the Xbox. Internal storage was definitely necessary and it eliminated butthole memory cards. Plus, having the option to download full games without even having to leave your condo is great. But for some reason, it's become a standard of the industry to abuse the hell out of this nice thing called the internet. And this is one of the few instances where Nintendo being stubborn and stuck in the past isn't a bad thing. Which leads me to my first reason why 32 gigabytes should be enough space for a console. And that reason's that big day one patches are bullshit. I don't blame developers for wanting to spruce games up an ass hair more after sending them out to stores before people could actually play them, but I have no idea how it became acceptable for games to be made into physical copies before they're even finished. The biggest reason why physical copies are so great in the first place is because once you buy them, they're yours forever. When the rapture comes, my dumbass is gonna be the only person left on Earth just because I farted on Santa that one time. But I take comfort in knowing that when I'm not repopulating the Earth with my main squeeze Shirlena, I'll be able to play some video games. At least the ones that were manufactured properly anyway. Every game that's had a big day one patch will be obsolete without the internet, which is ridiculous. I mean, seriously, when did this officially become a thing, and why did nobody notice or care? For any game that's unplayable without a day one patch, you're basically buying a physical copy of digital software. You might as well buy a download code from Funko Land and put the receipt on display in your game collection, seeing as how it'll be just as useless in 15 years. At least that way you don't have to change cartridges. First-party Nintendo games do have day one patches, but even if you don't have access to the internet, you probably wouldn't notice any of the differences in gameplay anyway, since the downloads are always smaller than the wiener God blessed me with. Nintendo must not have had any idea that companies would make consumers download such large percentages of games to the Switch when deciding 32 gigs is going to be the storage capacity. In fact, I know they weren't aware because I have exclusive never-before-seen footage of Shigeru Miyamoto giving 2K Sports a piece of his ass on this matter. My friend, if you're not going to put the entire game of NBA 2K18 on the Nintendo Switch cartridge, then you need to have a big ugly warning on the box art, my friend. Do I make myself clear, my friend? See me, amigo. Dziękuję bardzo. However, even though I think it's unacceptable for a full game not to be finished on the physical media without any mandatory requirements of a day one download, I will make an obvious exception for online-only games since I'm not going to be able to play Call of Duty in a post-apocalyptic world anyway. I'm sure some third-party Switch games that require massive day one downloads have less to do with the game not being finished, and more to do with developers just being too cheap to buy bigger game cards. Which is my second reason for why 32 gigabytes should be enough, is that some third parties won't buy the correct cartridges to hold their games. Instead, they'd rather just pass the cost on to the consumer. But I am a little more lenient on this one since any games larger than 8 gigabytes apparently cost considerably more to publish. And seeing as how most third parties are cautious about the Switch at first, it makes sense that they wouldn't want to pay for higher capacity cartridges right away. So I will place some blame on Nintendo for not finding a cheaper way to make game cards. I guess since most of the Switch's first party games are somehow kept so small, Nintendo probably expected everybody else to be able to figure it out too. But maybe it's a case of third parties never even trying to compress their games, with obscenely large day one downloads being acceptable on other consoles. And that Blu-rays hold more storage at a lower cost than cartridges. Either way, I hope Nintendo could find a way to make bigger cartridges cheaper, so it's not another reason for publishers to sell physical copies of digital downloads. But while I'm on the subject of games requiring a lot of space on the Switch, let's talk about how most games don't even need to leech off your Switch's memory in the first place, which is the third reason why 32 gigabytes should be enough. I mean, yeah, there's a handful of games that require the use of your internal storage, but almost every game on the console doesn't. It's seriously just a handful of games that have this issue. Most of the software for the Switch is done right by having the full games be on the cartridges. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, what about people who prefer buying digital games? Sure, the blame for day one patches and not wanting to pay for bigger cartridges is all on the third parties that choose to continue bad habits formed on other consoles. But there are a lot of people out there who prefer owning software digitally.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
And if one of those people wanted to download the Japanese exclusive Dragon Quest game that's 32 gigs, then unless you expand your storage, you're SOL and JWF.
Shit out of luck and jolly well fucked.
So if you prefer digital games, then yeah, 32 gigabytes is absolutely not enough for you. You're either going to need to buy the aforementioned microSD card, or get the deluxe model of the Switch. But that's right, there's only one incarnation in the Nintendo Switch, which leads me to my fourth and final reason why 32 gigabytes is enough storage for the Nintendo Switch. Having multiple models for one console is bullshit. And I'm not talking about upgraded models down the line. I'm talking about things like the Wii U Basic and the Wii U Deluxe, with the only difference being storage. But with the Switch, N-Dog said, frig that, we're making one model and it's gonna be as cheap as possible. They wanted people to decide for themselves how much extra storage they want. And while most gamers do want more than 32 gigabytes, myself included, there's probably a good chunk of people out there who don't give a monkey's nutsack. And if extra storage is something as cheap and easy to install as a microSD card, then why not keep the Switch as cheap as possible if you're Nintendo? I really don't understand the rationale of people getting upset at there not being a more expensive higher-end Switch model that has more storage, when it'd probably cost about an extra $50 or $100. All you need to do is spend like $30 to $40 on a microSD card for 128 gigs. In fact, your dad probably has an extra card lying around in his toolbox. There's probably many people who want a Switch that don't need 160 gigs to play Mario Odyssey in Shaq Fu HD. So what if those people were looking for a Switch and could only find the higher-end models? Or what if you wanted a higher-end model and could only find the basic 2GB console? So again, why not just cut the bullspit out and let consumers decide how much storage they want? The Switch is probably going to be around for years, so it's only a matter of time before microSD cards are like $1 for 7 terabytes. It just makes the Switch more universally appealing to keep the cost as low as possible. Plus, it's less confusing to the average person with only one model being on the market. And it's for these 4 reasons why I think the Nintendo Switch is just fine at 32 gigabytes. 1. Massive Day 1 patches are lame. 2. Full games should be on the cartridges anyway. 3. Most games don't even need the internal memory if you buy physical. And 4. It's much better to just let people decide how much space they want on their own. What do you think, though? Do you agree that people make way too big of a fuss over potentially needing to buy a cheap and easy to install microSD card? Or are your clams steamed that 32 gigabytes isn't enough for some third parties who won't put full games on the physical media? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll pin whatever I find most entertaining. Don't forget to like and share this video if you want to help this channel grow. And if you're a super sexy, mega cool, and tough, beastly badass who likes being pandered to and end slates, then go ahead and press the subscribe button. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty. Thank you for your support.